We're live! Welcome to Life Action Roleplay with
Sin
and
Kai
and Rhino Omega, brought to you by, what drinks do we have?
An awful lot of rum.
Rum and more rum. Mostly Oakhart rum, and I've got some Coke in mine, and most other people don't.
Fancy.
And for me, I have Starbucks coffee because now's the time.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, but now is the time for me to be caffeinated because we have a podcast party. We have 6 people here in the room. It is the most we've had, and hopefully we can keep everything straight. So now that we did our drinks,
possible here.
What?
Preface: we are sorry that it's going to be a little crazy on here.
Yes, but I will try my best to moderate, and Sin will help me.
I'm gonna help. I'm gonna assist.
You are an enabler. Well, that's not the right word. No, I'm sorry, not that word. Not
I'm not an enabler. Hold on.
I meant to say that you are good at helping. That was the, oh my goodness, and I wasn't drinking. All right, except coffee, because I'm hyper. Let's do our shout-outs. Do we have any shout-outs for anyone?
I have a shout-out.
Yes.
I just had an awesome game of Twin Mask, and so my shout-out is actually to a person in this room, which would be Paul, because he is one of the team that was responsible for such an amazing kind of like dark future what-if scenario that we were forced to play through, and it was wonderful.
All right, Sin, do you have shout-outs?
Well, if you're gonna do it to Twin Mass, then I'm gonna have to do it for La Sangre, because we are about to come up on our Halloween episode, which I'm really excited about, because I have a epic Victorian outfit to be wearing.
Oh, wait, what's your shout-out to? Because you just shouted out
It's
to
to the
your
whole
outfits.
group. I'm really excited
okay.
to like roleplay with everybody. Come on now.
Okay,
So
I was just following.
Your Halloween game is in November?
Yeah. I didn't plan it. It wasn't me.
What about second Halloween?
Well, our
Third Halloween.
our Halloween game, we always run it after Halloween because it's Los Angeles, and there's so many Halloween events happening right around Halloween, and so it's easier to just have it the game right afterwards.
So, in case anybody was wondering who was speaking, who are
hi.
you?
I'm Poisel. I'm the on-again, off-again head storyteller for La Sangre de Los Angeles, a One World by Night, vampire, LARP, Cambria, and Anarch genre.
Yay!
Okay, so let's introduce all the other guests.
Right?
I'll do my shout-out afterwards. And so we also have with us back Paul Howell, who is the head of story for Twin Mask and a player in Rendeler Remembered, and there's a new one coming out. What's the name of that one?
Arcane Ascension.
Arcane Ascension. And I believe that's having a day game this weekend. And along with us is a person who is no stranger to the topic that we have today, which is the portrayal of highly charismatic characters. We have Will Munoz, who plays in both Twin Mask and Dystopia Rising.
Hi, guys.
All right, and so my shout-out, referencing to what Kai was saying earlier about the dark future, and by the way, and I don't say this with any exaggeration, I've been playing LARP for almost 20 years, and the dark future mods, the second time they've run it, is probably one of the best mods I have ever played in my LARP career. And my shout out goes out to Andrew Jerome for playing Nivius in the dark future. He was playing the overlord in charge of all of the evil things. So it's one thing to play a character that's morally dubious, but it's another thing to play a character in the dark future that is
He was turned into a vampire lord tyrant and had to rule over all of us. It was kind of incredible.
It was, yeah, and he...
That's a lot to drop a player just kind of like deep end. Oh yeah, here you go. Here's this epic role. Good luck.
Yes, and he did a great job. He didn't think that he did a good enough job, and what was also interesting was in the dark future, Andrew and I both went through an incredible amount of bleed. And so it was good that he and I checked on each other before this mod happened, afterwards, a few days after. If it wasn't for Andrew, I would not have gone over this bleed. So my big shout out is for Andrew for an incredible job in and out of character. You should be proud for what you've done. You've become a legendary character in Twin Mask.
And that touches upon something that we discussed in a previous episode, which was how to play a good bad guy.
Yes.
And if the listeners haven't listened to that one yet, I would encourage checking that one out and going back on that one, because it's very relevant to that.
Yeah, and also we cover in that particular podcast Bleed, so extremely relevant.
Yep. For those who are unfamiliar, at least.
Yes, and the topic for tonight, how to play charismatic characters. And the reason why we have such a big group is because I want to bring out all of our friends who actually have that kind of experience, either personally or they've witnessed this, and we can see how the application of playing a charismatic character can extend to other parts of your life, and for people who want to be more social, take tips from people who have that kind of experience. So the first question to the group, anyone can answer this: how do you define charisma?
Besides being a stat on D&D?
Well, that's the first step.
That is, charisma is not a dump stat.
Depends on the edition you're playing. Depends on the edition.
This is true.
This is true.
Jesus, Mary and Joseph. Okay, hold on. Someone's gotta actually pull up the dictionary.
I would say what determines charisma is your natural kind of likability and how much kind of magnetic sway that you may or may not have over other people.
See,
The secondary is what I believe is more relevant to that kind of scenario, because sometimes you're not really liked, but you still have a lot of charisma. Take one of our characters from DR. He's Booker. That character, and a lot of people don't even like him, but they know he's very charismatic. They know he has a way with his words. They know he can sway a crowd just by using certain tips and phrases, and how he says them, how he conveys that sense of power. Even if he's not the most powerful person in the situation, he is still the most powerful person in the situation.
So just to interrupt real quick, Merriam-Webster.com says charisma is defined as a special magnetic charm or appeal.
That was
Magnet. Yay.
magnets.
Well,
And so I agree with Kai on the second part, and Will on the third and first part, I believe.
Yes.
There are countless examples of charismatic characters and people that are not liked. To go with a very pop culture reference, Negan from The Walking Dead is a very charismatic character that everybody hates.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of that force of person. I think charisma is a representation of a force of personality, which is why you see, going back to tabletop role-playing games, you see the change of the stat from second into third, where in second edition it really was the likability, look at me, everybody likes me, look at me sing stat, and in third edition onward it is a force of personality stat. And I think that one is much more accurate, much conveyed much better that way.
I think it also kind of carries into an idea of just confidence, because I think that is what really comes across, whether you're likable or not, is being confident, and that comes through. And I think in actually portraying charismatic characters is whether you want to be liked, whether you want to be disliked, whether you are trying to be cunning or sexy or seductive or whatever. It all boils down to the confidence that goes into it. That's my opinion.
I like that.
You can also play charismatic characters that lack confidence, that still have that draw, but the confidence is one of the most prevalent play styles and prevalent conveyors. It's very hard to play a non-confident charismatic character, but I have seen it done.
do you have an example of that? Because I can
I'm
not
drawing
even
blanks on
think
that
of
personally.
how that can be even pulled off.
So I don't want to do any big spoilers to particular game.
Oh, yeah, of course,
So
of course.
I'm not going to point out anybody there. But if you look at pulp culture, if you look at TV shows, if you look at anime, what's her name from Cowboy Bebop?
Yeah, I don't know.
Anybody? Faye
Valentine?
Wait,
Ed.
Ed.
Oh, Ed.
Ed.
The little inventor?
Ed is very charismatic, but not very, very confident. She has her odd kind of confidence that kind of leads to, but not quite.
I think that is confidence in itself. That's it's confidence in, pardon my French, not giving a fuck. Yeah, just
You can swear.
You can swear.
Okay.
Totally fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
So there's a confidence in just that's one of the things I would give highly to confidence is just not giving a fuck, and so that is I think where Ed's confidence comes from is Ed just doesn't care, and so the things that Ed does in their uncaringness of whether you agree with them or disagree with them is what draws you to them.
But at the same time, with someone like Ed, even though she is not super confident in herself, what the things that she is confident is in the stuff that she knows. Well, let me say that again because that's Ryan stumbling. She is confident in the stuff that she knows. She knows her shit, and the appreciation that she knows her stuff makes her charismatic.
Now, in most cases, the charismatic bumbling sidekick is another good example, a good classic trope. That might not be confident in their abilities or what they can do, but they still draw that attention, especially when they're paired with a less charismatic protagonist or main lead. The pair kind of serves that purpose together. But generally, as a whole, either that force of confidence or that force of not caring, not being weighed down by your own choices, is conveyed as confidence. You're right, it is a primary facet of charisma.
You can also get very specific forms of confidence in just being hyper good at something, hyper skilled. Yeah, I was just drawing a blank there. Just being so good that you know your material so well that you have confidence in that specific thing, and that can draw charisma in specific scenarios, even if you're not charismatic in others. So there are certain specific characters that are very confident in certain scenarios, Sherlock Holmes, I guess was what's first what came to mind of he's very confident in his skills as a detective and very confident and has that charisma in those scenarios, but outside of the scenarios, he's socially
attendant.
Yeah, he's very socially detached.
That is an excellent example, yes. I can agree with that now. You've convinced me.
Can you?
There's charisma for you. Look, it's called diplomacy.
And speaking of charisma, many of us here have played charismatic characters. I want to go around this room and just have you talk a little bit about your charismatic character and maybe what he or she has done in game that either exemplifies this or something that another player has mentioned to you about the character that you've played. You're looking at me.
You!
And
Go,
voluntold. Ryan's going first.
Okay. So for me, what's weird about this subject is that so many people tell me that I play charismatic characters that I cannot play a low charisma character. Ryan does not think he's charismatic, but apparently the Archduke Sicario Paloma from Twin Mask is considered highly charismatic. His ability to talk to a group of people and rally them when there's a huge conflict between them. He is the mediator of a lot of arguments. He mends a lot of people that would have gone to war with each other because he thinks that the best way that anyone can get through I don't want to say a mod, but a game is to really survive together. So a lot of it for him is being diplomatic rather than charismatic in his head. Yes.
So as a fellow Twin Mask player, I've witnessed Sicario in his earlier years because I was an NPC to the point where didn't you mention that before you actually got, because you're so charismatic and it's such a powerful voice, not only as the metaphor but as the literal standard, that you got something out of that. What was that thing called again?
Oh, yeah, that was the Voice of Awe. And what happened was there was a speech that Sicario gave to a group of people underneath the rain in the tarp. Now, when the rain hits the tarp, it gets very loud, so I had to speak louder than the volume that was deafening my voice. At this point, there was no law in the land, so I had to be the law, and I decided on Dacian law, which basically means everyone has to watch for themselves, since I cannot actually judge over people's words. So one of the things that I said is I give everyone the power of judge, jury, and executioner, and then real thunder and lightning struck above me. And it was surreal that even happened. And then when someone said, that's a little extreme, you should change your mind, and I said no, and thunder, real life thunder, rolled.
Again?
Yeah. And then when I said court is adjourned, the skies cleared up and there was no more rain, and it was the most surreal moment ever in game that my charisma extended to weather. And to commemorate that moment, they gave me the power of the voice of awe. And I don't know if that really applies. That was Mother Nature just responding to me, not really people.
Mother
but
Nature responded to your
circumstance.
charisma. That's my opinion on that.
Okay.
So I'd like to clarify that Dacian law, the law of Dace in Twin Masks, is literally whatever is in style is legal, whatever is not in style is illegal. So it changes and it floats quite often. It makes Dace a very interesting but very dangerous place, especially if you lack charisma.
So
Well played, Paul!
what you're saying is, to be a good Dacian, you always need to be in style.
You want to be setting the style.
Yes,
If you look
exactly.
over the edge.
You should always be a trendsetter.
But it's dangerous to be a trendsetter because if you try to set a trend and it does not take, you have committed a crime.
Oops.
Of fashion.
Not necessarily. You could just fail epically.
Oh, yeah.
But if you feel
Yeah.
epically with style and you take root and confidence in it,
That
it's
makes
like,
you a
I
bard.
meant to do this.
Yeah.
Sort of like there's this thing that Prince does apparently when, God rest his soul.
Rest in
When
peace.
Prince, rest in peace. When Prince performs live, if he messes up on a guitar
Wait, hold on.
chord,
You messed up.
that's it. Okay, let me finish.
Yeah.
If you mess-
Theoretically,
Hold on.
Theoretically. So what
Uh-oh.
happens is that if he plays and he misplays notes, the thing that he does immediately, he plays that note again to make it look like he did it on purpose, and everybody just assumes that he did something awesome and improv. And that's in my head what I think of when you feel epically in style. If you're gonna fail, you own it, you commit to it, and you keep going until everybody else is rallying around you.
I do that when I trip and fall in high heels.
So we have to apply for you when you fall in high heels.
Yeah. So I funny story. When I was at work, I'm walking in about 4-inch high heels, and I have my purse.
I mean,
and
don't we all?
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm strutting. I'm walking into the door, and my heel caught one of the cracks in the parking lot, and I epically fail and fall to my doom. And it wasn't like, oh god, I'm gonna scrape my elbow, fall, but I fell, and all the contents of my purse fell, but I sat literally perfectly nice on the curb, and everything fell out, and I was like, well, okay, I'm gonna play this off I'm totally fine, because there was a bunch of people walking by me, and I was like, hi guys, good morning, how are you? Cleared up all of my contents and put it in my purse and kept walking. So I feel like I had a Prince moment.
That was definitely a Prince moment.
Yes.
You owned the thing that could have tripped you up. Well, literally tripped you up.
All of the charisma I had to hone in and rock paper scissors to make sure that was kosher.
there's also a great amount of dexterity involved in that action.
Yeah, well,
More stats.
Free poise.
I am poised. What's up, Poisel?
Yeah.
It's your turn.
Yeah, Poisel. What?
Uh-huh.
You
Alright.
play charismatic characters. I know because I've seen them.
Well, which one do you want me to talk about?
Sid.
Sid. All right.
As
For
Sid
you,
giggles.
Sid. For you, Sid. For you, Sid. So, in Lasanga, I currently play a very, very charismatic 80s rock star vampire. For those of you familiar with Cam Anarch, Vampire the Masquerade, he is a follower of Set. Although he says, I don't believe in God, I don't believe in Set, I'm just an atheist. I don't...
Liar!
Love him already.
So when you say rock star, are we talking Mick Jagger style
He's
or
like,
something
he's
else?
an amalgam of Sid Vicious meets Mick Jagger
meets like Russell Brand's character from Get Him to the Greek.
Okay.
So
That's charisma.
he is over
So
the
much.
top.
He does too many bad things.
But he's just friendly. And
What does Sid do, huh?
Nothing. Sid doesn't do anything bad.
He is the epitome
Paragon?
of humanity.
So what does so
As a Sethite,
So what
a
does
paragon
this-
of humanity.
So what does this paragon of humanity do in terms of like what's an example of how this paragon of humanity uses charisma?
He is friendly. He
So friendly.
no, like honestly, like it's all about
Just going up to people, introducing yourself, talking. I think a good part of being charismatic and being friendly and maintaining an air of like of personality in a game is a lot of it is listening and being able to be available for characters, like and putting that extra effort into trying to be genuine all the time. But there's also just in Vampire you have the extra abilities of just being able to like use disciplines to make people like you. There's out of character ways in which like charisma is bolstered by personal appearance. I am not a bad looking person, and I know that is a benefit to me as a role player, and playing a charismatic character, it aids in that. But it's something that I'm aware of, and I try not to use too ill. It's also as a naturally like charismatic person, as someone I can just talk with people and convince people and manipulate people. It is hard not to play a charismatic character.
Would you say that, so you as a person have a degree of natural charisma, so you can exert that into your characters. What about the flip side? Can a person who isn't a naturally charismatic person actually play a charismatic character, though? Like, is that something that people would even be able to manage?
As a storyteller, I have a unique perspective to be able to watch other players very closely. And it is interesting to see how players can come to a game and be socially awkward and lack that innate charisma. But through the course of playing characters in the safe place of a story world with friends and people they trust, they can find their charisma and learn charisma from other people. It is very much a skill you can learn if you are allowed to experiment and express and try. And LARP is one of the best safe places to do that. And I've watched more than a few players go from having a hard time making eye contact and saying hello to you to a year into playing their character, even out of character, they're gregarious, they're telling stories and jokes and engaging people on a broad spectrum. And it was LARP that helped them find that part of them or learn those skills. So I think it is very much something you can learn and something that you can grow, or not necessarily be able to start with as a player if you lack those skills, but be able to grow them as a part of it.
So, as a tip, newbie coming into the LARP world, what kind of tips would you give somebody who wanted to grow their character as a charismatic character?
Looks like we have
Will?
Yep. Because I remember being in this scenario, and sometimes I still feel like I'm in this scenario still, because I do have many times where real life comes first. Let's always remember this. Real life comes first. Find the goal that is for your character, and then try to find the person that's going to find a solution to that goal. Make the mindset of, okay, I'm not trying to socialize, I'm trying to, further the means to an end of my character. And you just keep taking those steps. Whatever roadblock you find then an alternate mean, or you wait until the door opens again. Before long, you'll start finding out that one person knows this person, knows this person, knows this person, and you end up talking to those people, seeing if your goal is being aforementioned going forward. By then, if they're helping you, they're probably going to expect you to help them, which then causes you to socialize with them back and forth. Eventually, you'll start socializing with almost everyone. That's kind of what I did with my character, which I'll mention after we get to this whole circle. I'd like to go over.
Actually, like we were covering the different characters. Go ahead and talk about.
But
No, we can. We've been bouncing around.
We're gonna.
We still
bounce
have poll
all-
to
all
do
over the
anyway, so
place.
we're just
Okay.
gonna make sure everyone
All
has
right.
their turn.
Because
So-
what you just described literally sounds like my. Ooh, I shouldn't say this, but my character. Agenda.
So, my character that I have that is extremely charismatic, because the other one I have isn't really charismatic. He's just a sneaky little devil. Doesn't really have any charisma. I've actually tried not to be charismatic with him. The character I'm speaking of is from Twin Mask. His name is Wesley. For anyone who's watched The Princess Bride, yes, that one. I've gathered the charismatic details of Wesley, the walk and swagger of Jack Sparrow, and I forgot what else I put on the page that's supposed to describe said character. You can find it on Wiki. It's kind of cool. What I did was, okay, I came back from the dead. I don't remember where I am. I need to find out where I am. First person I spoke to helped me get 2 different answers, which was weird on my first game. But the other person was new, so it's okay. The second thing that he wanted to find out is, where's my family? You're not where you are at home. Cool. And I just kept finding goals to build up to, because this is my first character I actually played in said LARP. I played with him when I was 18. I made this character when I was 18. I did not get to play him until I was 24.
So you're the youngest of the group.
Yes,
currently.
yes, I am. I'm
You're the
For
baby.
the record, he is the youngest of the group.
So that's basically been Wesley's goal, to solve the problem, find the means to the end of the problem, and that before long I knew the good Lord Sicario. I am meeting with Kai's characters in Twin Mask
Corvus.
I've met with Corvus like once or twice in the same game, and I've met the rest of the house. The means to an end is basically the way I went.
A tip I would give to somebody who wants to play a more charismatic character who's doesn't have that natural charisma is one part is recognizing and coming to realize that the games that we're playing in and the spaces that we have for the games are safe places to experiment. Safe places to kind of go outside of ourselves, to take risks, and it's really in that, like, giving yourself permission to take risks, to let yourself do things that you wouldn't normally do, to kind of embody different aspects of yourself that you're trying to work on, that you feel you're kind of lacking, things that you just want to work on. It's a good
Drawing things out of yourself?
Yeah. It's a really good space to do that, and having a really, like, welcoming and comforting and safe, like, environment and community around you, and other players that can help you with that you can bounce ideas off of, that you can work with, that you'll have a good time doing the same thing with and helping them do that. I think is one of the key really good components to kind of developing a charisma and developing that confidence to be able to just kind of take those risks.
A lot of what we're talking about here, I'm kind of realizing something, and it's more kind of the intent to LARP, and we're talking about charisma and things like that. Really, I'm the type of player that views LARP as kind of like a giant social sandbox, and you get to run around and you get to do things. But I'm realizing that there's a few different types of players. There are the ones who kind of like play to win, and for LARP, that's usually a big misnomer. Like, it's very hard to win this game that doesn't really have any dedicated win objectives. It's an experience game. But there are people who still play to win. Then you've got the people who play to, like, fight or acquire wealth or something like that. They treat it more like a video game where they're kind of collecting points, and the points are these things that they're going to grade their experience on. And then I feel like you get the third type, which are the ones that really bring a different element to LARP, and they're really rich kind of engagement points. And I feel like everyone has, like, kind of goes into this over time. Some might start playing to this objective. Others will get kind of like a fishhook of a plot will kind of catch them and reel them in. And before they realize it, they're playing in this way. And that is to play to explore a dynamic or a personality trait. When I create characters, I'm realizing that the more and more characters I make, they're all suffer puppets. I'm expecting them to die, and when they die, I'm hoping that they go out with a good experience and a memorable time, and people remember those characters fondly.
I love that phrase, suffer puppets. I
Right?
just want to say that.
It's super fun.
Literally seen a picture on Facebook where it's just like, my new OC. and the next picture is her procuring a knife, stabbing, and it's just
And
I'm going to enjoy this.
Yeah, like developing a backstory for it. It's a pretty amusing meme, but also very true because most LARP characters have tragic backstories. When I try to create a character, I try to think of an initial character trait that I want to really focus on, and that would be my experience. It might be something as simple as like, oh, I want to play a noble rather than a commoner in this like fantasy setting, but I'm going to really run with it. Or I'm going to play a character that's really kind of like discriminatory against a certain other group of people, be it like elves or orcs or something like that.
Or so tight.
Exactly. Like, there's a lot of different environments that can kind of throw characters into the way they play their characters. And finding those anchor points and kind of establishing, as Will was talking about, the objectives of your character are the things that I feel are the easiest way for a new player to kind of really kind of get a real good, like, healthy bite into the story and start to really engage and feel motivated to actually start talking to other people and looking out for their goals and things like that.
To touch on something that Poisel said earlier about attractiveness, how important is attractiveness into being charismatic?
Oh, that's
It's a hard question,
That's
but
a hard
it's
question.
a
It's
relevant question.
Yeah, it is relevant. I think it's
hard to parse those two in some ways. Like, I think there are, and they're, like, they can be very distinct, but they overlap so much in the way that we interact here, just socially, like, as people, is so much of communication is based on just verbal or non-verbal cues, on the way our bodies work and the way our bodies move, and like
body language,
our body language, and people, whether they realize that or not, are more receptive to body language from people that they are attracted to, and so if people are more attracted to you, they're going to be looking at your body more, and so they're going to be understanding your communication more, and so you're going to be able to reach them better, and so whether you want to or not, having that privilege of being conventionally attractive is a boon.
An advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think personally, part of it is yes, we are in LA, and so that does affect some of the. And the reason why I say that is because we are very lucky that we have an audience that is worldwide, but a lot of being in Los Angeles does affect our perception of the beauty standard here. But at least what I've seen in LARPs, various LARPs, whether it's a buffer LARP or a parlor LARP, what really determines it is really the way you present yourself, more so than the conventions of physical attractiveness. Like, I think if someone comes in a sharp suit, it doesn't matter really what they look like. The fact that they came in a sharp suit suddenly makes your brain go, oh my goodness, who is this person?
Yeah, that is attractive. Like, it's not necessarily, I'm not saying that, like, I find the person always attractive, but the attire, the level of detail, I think it's part of confidence. It's like that is it is the full bodiness of your character, being able to like fully embrace it through costuming, through makeup, through the way you stand, the way you walk, the way you talk. Like, all of those things add into the attractiveness of just the magnetism. Not I'm not saying attractiveness and just like how good you look, but
the charisma of your character. Go for it, Will.
So, and yes, if for those of you wondering why there's a pause and they say go for it, Will, I'm putting up my hand because I'm a good little student. The youngest one here, I have much to learn. What I can definitely say for charisma, another part of it, and especially for new players, if you're really not confident yourself or you're really not charismatic yourself, dress the part you play. Now let's say Lord Sicarial. Every time he comes into town, it's a fancy, well-made suit, but it's not only just well-made, it's well-mannered. It's not uptight, it's formal yet informal because he knows the crowd he's with, kind of. And for my character Wesley, I've made him to be a pirate. So what I did was put on the slightly flashy but yet kind of beaten up garb that would be necessary for him that I knew would play into his part. So I can be him and be charismatic, because another part of playing such a charismatic character is you want to get into the headspace of it, and costume is part of that.
Yeah, a very Johnny Depp aesthetic versus...
Yeah. So,
But yeah. Oh, no, Brad.
So an example of that, going outside of the LARPing gaming experience, is to get in that mindset, to get into that confidence of the character. When they were producing Lord of the Rings, the costume department made sure that everything of the costume, even things that weren't seen, helped bring them closer to that character. They were wearing period underwear and undergarments. The accessories in their pockets that nobody ever saw on screen. It was all to help bring them that much closer to their character. One of the things in my character questionnaire that I asked all the characters I make and all the characters I help to make is, what is in your character's pockets? Because that little bit of detail really makes you think about what is important to them, or what makes them feel like a real person.
Yeah.
Once you get into the headspace of that real person, once this character is real to you, their natural, the charisma of that character can start to come through yourself. So anything you can do to help bridge that I am a player, that's a character, to help narrow that gap, the easier it is to do it. And being in costume is a confidence builder nonetheless. And as we established earlier, confidence is one of the key traits to charisma.
Yeah, there's things that like I do with certain characters. I wear very specific jewelry with certain characters, certain accessories. I wear certain underwear when I play my Sedite. Like there's certain things that help you like just feel the character and like have that like mindset of this is who I am. This is what this person wears. This is what this person dresses like. This is like what this person eats. Even sometimes it's like there are certain things that help with the immersion of it. And
I'd even go so far as to say, I know some people, it's actually fairly common from what I understand. A lot of people, when they're kind of like heading to the event or planning on getting into character, they have a playlist.
Yep.
Ah, yes.
And they'll have a character playlist that I'll listen to. In fact, I think we should try and make a point, if any of us have character playlists on Spotify, we can link those as shares, and if people are curious, they can have a listen to some of those. I'm certainly willing to share one of mine.
Same here, yeah.
I'll have to,
Cool.
I'll have to get
I don't
one
have
together
one.
for Sid.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
I'd be interested in hearing
That's gonna
that.
be a little extra work, but I am actually pretty curious to see what's on everybody's playlists. Like
It's
when it
kinda
comes
fun.
to.
Wes just gonna have shanties all over
I
the place.
definitely have
Shanties
some
and shanties.
songs from my old Nosferatu that were key to that. And as I was telling Ryan earlier before recording, one of my Sabbat characters is actually like very heavily based, just inspired by a song.
Nice.
Like one specific song, which is for those of you who are familiar with Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. It's the song "Red Right Hand." Is my Sabbat Venture.
That's a wonderful song too. It's actually like the intro for a
Peaky
series.
Blinders.
Yeah, there you go.
Which is also an inspiration for the character.
I have a playlist that has 6 variations of that song on it. It's pretty awesome.
Oh wow. Dang.
Yeah, there's lots of variations and remixes and retakes on it. It's a great song.
Yeah, I love that song. And that's another charismatic character I play that's very different in charisma from other characters. He's very much a just sheer force of personality and intimidation factor of like not speaking a lot but having like a strong like just force of like personality and
And
like,
body language.
presence.
Yeah, presence.
Yeah.
So, out of curiosity, are there examples of charisma that you kind of want to share with the class? Maybe something that you've done, something that you've seen in somebody else that you have seen recently that like is just a good example of what charisma does look like in a LARP.
There is a player in my game that consistently, game in and game out, is one of the keystone players in my game. He has been playing the player's name is Phil. He's been playing the Prince of Los Angeles in La Sangra for a little over 3 years now.
Do you mind if I ask how many players your game usually has?
Right now we're up to a little bit over 40 regularly.
Very cool. That's a good
So
number.
we've been growing. It's been growing over
Yeah.
the last couple of years. Over my last tenure and the STs before me, 'cause we kind of rotate a bit. We've done a lot of work to really grow our game back up to some really good numbers, and we were having a really good resurgence recently. So
Great.
but Phil's been there through it all, and he has this like quiet air of just like dignified, like reserved anger. Sometimes he plays very old brouhaha,
Nice.
and both in character and out of character, he makes the effort of making sure that players are involved, and he uses his charisma and his just like his duty and responsibility in game and out of game to make sure that other players are having a good time by passing plot on the players, by making sure people are involved, by making sure that they have someone to talk to if there's no one around, and just like making people feel connected to the court and to the prince, even if he's not friendly with them. But he goes above and beyond on a both in character and out of character level of carrying this responsibility, carrying this duty and this dignitas about his character that it consistently shines through.
I really like...
Those players are gold.
Yeah, I was going to say, I really love the concept of older players who take it upon themselves to kind of start incorporating what a few of my friends, and I think even Tobias in one of our previous interviews mentioned, which is the 10-foot rule. If you're within 10 feet of me and we're at a game, I'm going to try and make sure that you're actually enjoying yourself. And that doesn't mean cracking jokes and dropping character and screwing with people and stuff, but try and just have this 10-foot bubble around you where you're trying to make the game more of an experience. And I really, really respect that kind of attitude.
Yeah, if all the players would add to each other's games, the game would be so much better for everybody else's part. And I'm not saying you got to take responsibility for the players, like ultimately you're responsible for your own fun, but the players that add to the game make it so much easier to tell stories. It makes it so much easier to get people involved. It makes it so easier to get those hooks in, to get people really in traction with the plot. And yeah, those players are phenomenal and remarkable, and if more people would take those actions, it would make storytelling a breeze.
Oh yes.
I have to actually reference the Twin Mass Dark Future that we just had. I feel like that was a really good example of players kind of just stepping up and stuff, because there were maybe perhaps 6 NPCs walking around a group of, what was the attendance? Do you know?
I don't have final count personally, but it was one of our largest games. We had at start of Friday night, we had 35 new players, and that was before Game On. Not
What?
All the other ones that came in. 35
So
new players.
That's a lot.
I think we safely had at least 70, if not maybe 80 or maybe more.
Gotta be
We
more
had
than
a
that.
lot of people.
I'm pretty sure it was more than 80, considering all the vets showed up. And said Friday night we had 35 new players alone. That was before game started. They trickled in throughout the night. We had people that had come that had never even experienced our game before, that came in NPC because they heard about Dark Future, and Dark Future is kind of our flagship mod. It runs every 3 years. It's a glimpse where we go 3 years into the future through a creepy dream.
Wait, so I have to wait 3 more years to do another one of those?
No, because you need
So
to.
I need to wait 3 years before I can experience one.
Because it just takes that long to
Poison, I'm
recover.
dragging you to next
from-
game if I have to.
I want to
Okay.
I need to get out to more LARPs.
Oh, yeah.
outside of-
No, see, we can't do it every year because you need to be entrenched in your character.
That's
So
fair.
we know what you're doing, so we can predict your future, and 2, so you can anticipate it. Now we're really good at working in new players. We had again a ton of new players that we had no established backstory or story for, that we had to make up a future for them. Which is predictive storytelling is really difficult to do on that scale, and pretty much Dark Future is a mod where everybody
Is miserable.
Everyone's a sufferer.
We run it where there's no actual NPCs or staff. All the staff goes in as a single character.
Yeah.
There are no NPCs. There are no crunchies. It's pretty much a giant player versus player experience. But it's not like the Purge. It's we give teams goals and tasks, and it's really interesting to see because in this chaos, like it really turns the world on its head. It turns the player base on its head. in this chaos, players you wouldn't expect arise as leaders, become the charismatic magnet point, because the people that are normally in that spot are totally displaced, and it frees them to try to experiment this, and we really try to give a chance to new players to really get out there and sabotage their own, because ultimately, since it is a dream, since it is a prophecy, a living prophecy, you can screw up really horribly. You can attack your friends. You can be PvP, and the consequences are relatively light, because when the dream ends, the dream ends. So it's like a LARP instead of a LARP.
Yeah, it's
it was a great what if scenario. Sorry
it gets
to
back
interrupt
to
you.
the freedom to take these risks. It's by taking away the in-character consequences.
Yeah.
You're giving even more of that freedom, which allows us people to take on that charisma. Because I think that ultimately brings back to what I was saying is freedom is what we need. We need the
safe place to do
safe
it.
place to do it.
Secondly, actually, to compound on what Poisel just said, there was the freedom and the kind of like people generally felt like, oh, if I die in this weird dream world, I'm not really dead. Like, this is kind of a what if scenario. I'm a little bit safer, which was somewhat true. Not entirely, but somewhat true.
There were consequences.
But there's also the added side of objective. Everyone, not privately, but we were divided into different groups, and the groups were not the groups were asymmetrical groups. The biggest group were the group being run by Nivius the Vampire Lord, and he had a whole bunch of tyrant. He was like several characters had gone evil. Lots of people had been like enslaved magically. There were characters that if they got too far away from certain artifacts that certain characters were walking around with, their heads would explode. And that was absolutely monstrous and wonderful. My character's own mother and Lord Sicariel, who Ryan plays, were the objective of my faction. I managed to get basically almost sorting hats sorted into the Resistance. And my character's noble house is this house called Uldraven, and there were only a few of us at game. And the one who was at game primarily was myself and this other character, Lady Rosalind, who was my character's mother. And they were the objective that we had to try and save both of them. And initially, I didn't really fully comprehend that. So while John was kind of dividing everyone up, and he's like, okay, you're with the Resistance. And I go off to the Resistance kind of being like, what? Why am I not with all of the people that I socialize with in-game? Like, my normal faction are all on the evil side. And I go back to John and I ask him, hey, John, I don't really understand. And he was like, your mother is not willfully a member of the bad guys. She's been enslaved. And I'm like, oh, crap. Wow. Yeah.
So one of the things we try to do with Dark Future is, again, turn things on its head. And we get it all the time. We love watching the confused looks on players' faces as they try to figure out why they are here, why they are put with certain groups. Might not make sense from the outside. But there are really good reasons why we laid out the groups the way they are. An example being is that one. In the first Dark Future, I was put into a group of Offendal elves as my human inquisitor, who's responsible for untold deaths of elves. And all the other players were like, what the hell is this guy here for? Like, he shouldn't be here. And he was really, really, really upset that other players trying to figure it out. Just long story short, is the last of the Inquisitors teamed up with the last of the elves to try to make a last stand against it. So we try to very much upset the balance of things, so make people really ask those questions. What if? Why am I here? What's going on? To give them that thought shake-up to really help them get in character and figure out the motivations. So that was all intentional.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it was an incredible experience, and I felt both kind of in my wheelhouse but out of my wheelhouse. And what I think was really interesting, and I might be repeating myself here, but like everyone was given this objective of like the head storytellers were kind of walking around briefing all of the groups and saying, here is your win condition. And it felt a little bit like if any of you have ever done like like an dinner evening kind of like murder mystery where it's like
yeah.
you're almost playing like an interactive LARP Clue where everyone gets an envelope and some of them say that you're a regular person or you die at this point in time, and other characters are like you're the murderer and you've got to hide your identity, and the game kind of slowly unfolds as it's played. And because there was so much player agency in that experience, and players all had these objectives, very few people were just kind of milling around. Everyone had these crazy things going on. And more often than not, I noticed that most of the more powerful characters in the game normally, the usual ones who are the ones taking the lead and throwing the big hits and being the heroes among heroes, were actually the ones who were, for example, being sold in a slave market or captured and we had to free them. And it was a wonderful element of role reversal where the little guys felt like the big guys. In fact, our group, the Resistance, which were only about 15, maybe 15 of us, almost all of us were, I would say, half of us were new players. The rest of us were maybe 6 to 8 games in, and then 1 or 2 characters were a little bit older.
Yeah, it allowed for a lot of people that are usually overshadowed by the big leader, by the big charismatic characters, to actually get out from under those shadows and play on their charisma themselves and become leaders, because we put all the big threats are obviously the ones in Dark Future that would be contained or killed or sold into slavery. So those power gaps had to be filled, and seeing the new leaders step up, seeing the new people stepped up, was always interesting to see. And I know going forward, those characters are going to become the next generation of leaders of the group.
Yeah.
And had a safe chance to do
I'm
it.
just sad I missed that.
This brings me to an idea that's something I was thinking about. One of the reasons I enjoy my shout out to the player of the Prince, his role play in the way he helps bring other players into being charismatic characters is just through delegation, and it's through like as charismatic people, as if you're a charismatic person or a player, you can delegate these. You can delegate responsibilities to other players that kind of can help aid their role play, help force them into different scenarios that can help like raise them up and make them more individualistic, more involved, and help them develop their own charisma and their own like force of personality.
Yeah, and so he's basically delegating responsibility, delegating them story.
Yeah.
And it's making them, if somebody else tells you have to do it, the character is more likely to try to do it. It's a great way to do it.
Yeah.
One of the things that we try to do, again, in Dark Future is that switching up of roles and putting people in positions they normally wouldn't let themselves get put into in character. We can do that really easily because we do a fade to black and suddenly here's your role, here's what you are. So normally we could use an ability to like run away and escape. Sorry, Ryan, you're a slave now. You can't do anything about it. So it forces you to respond to that role.
Gotcha. Well, actually, so as a kind of follow-up question there, especially, so I found it really fascinating that, as I mentioned previous, some of the stronger characters in the game were kind of forced into positions where they were being sold as slaves, or they were imprisoned, or they were actually like completely enslaved, so they had no free will of autonomy and they had to follow the orders of these weaker players, which I'm sure was an absolutely mind-blowing experience for some of them. And probably like a bit of an ego boost.
Literally a mind-blowing experience for some of them.
Oh yeah, considering the ones that just pop people's brains, which was a delightfully evil concept, and I'm sure you came up with that.
I will not confirm or deny that.
But so actually, fortunately, with that kind of scenario, we have one of the oldest and perhaps most influential and powerful characters in that game. Not necessarily in combat, but he is an earth-like moving character when it comes to some of his influences and involvement within the story, right here with us. So, Ryan, how come? If you're not comfortable answering that question, it's totally fine. Okay. But how did you feel being put into that different headspace where you're kind of forced to not play your character? Or like not have the agency and control over your character like normal players do? Did your character change meaningfully after this?
So
what happened?
So in the dark future, because, well, let's go into what my character normally does. He's the Archduke, he's the governor, or was, and, it's strange, like, how he is, like, the most powerful character at game, just socially, charismatically, which is weird, but, like, is appropriate to topic. But when all of his power is taken away, in the dark future, he was enslaved, he was mocked, he was ridiculed, he was tortured. One of the reasons why Kai prefaced this question the way he did was because he knows and he was there for me, so thank you, Kai, I love you.
No worries, buddy.
I unintentionally got triggered during that mod because and it wasn't even worth mentioning because the trigger is so rare, but basically I was surrounded by people that told me I was weak, I was nothing, and I was not in a position to escape. So I was sitting there and taking it, and I had to figure out, do I want to tap out? Do I want to tap out? This is a little much. It was kind of traumatic, but I kind of went into my actor's head, like, no, you have to stay for the scene because the scene demands that the dark future, acts this way. I am powerless, I am mocked, I am nothing, I am worthless, I am worth killing, I am worth dying. But I had to sustain that for about 2 hours continuously. It's important for other people to see you be weak because it makes their roleplay experience better and stronger. But it was very, very hard. I tried to act out physically in order to get away from that trigger, but I couldn't because I, again, went to
Like you tried to escape a little bit?
I tried to escape a couple of times, but there was a reason why I was hitting the table and scratching on things and kicking things and screaming, because it was the only way that I can actually deal with the constant.
Do you feel like your decision to kind of like write it out like that was the best decision? Like, do you regret not tapping out? Like, how do you feel about that now in kind of like post-analysis? Or decompression?
In the decompression, I thought that it was still worth it, but I just didn't expect that the bleed would last as long as it did, like for 4 days. That's the longest time I've ever had bleed. Like, I literally could not do anything for 2 days. And I still have to do production stuff.
Yeah.
And, like, that doesn't get put on hold. It really was talking to people, like, people just checking in on me, making sure I was okay. Ultimately, it was talking to Andrew, who played Nivius, who was on the opposite
Your
end
tormentor,
of all that.
like the demon that was poking you with a pitchfork.
Yeah, it was the tormentor that helped me get through it because he was also going through a very heavy blade. And
not everyone likes to be the villain so like palpably. It's a lot, and when you've got a huge community of empaths and nerds who like really do genuinely care about each other, so long as the community is fostered well, even being the bad guy can be, almost especially being the bad guy, can be a huge burden.
This is where aftercare is so very, very important. Whether you're the leader or the tormentee or the follower. Twin Mask is known for playing really intense emotional games with people, and sometimes we feel really bad about it. Other times, if we can bring it out, it's a chance for people to explore those emotions and sometimes even work through them. But aftercare is, no matter what game you play, so very important. Whether you are taking care of somebody else or being taken care of, don't be afraid to step into that. Don't be afraid to check in. Even in Ryan's case, days later, the effects of bleed can be very bad and last a very long time.
Yeah.
And when you have a good community of players, Twin Mask is a great community of players, and most of the games in California that I've experienced do, that you can rely really heavy on them. If it wasn't for that amount of safety, we wouldn't be able to tell these stories, wouldn't be able to play these games.
I recently had a bit of bleed as well from being. I played a very character with a lot of charisma in a werewolf game.
All about charisma and werewolf, actually.
Yeah, he was first backstory for this character. His name was Law of the Pavement. He was a Bonar Philodox, and Beta of the Sept, rank 4 Athro, and Alpha of his pack. They were First Strike. They followed Hummingbird. We had like a small mission. We were supposed to go and save this Goral cub, and ended up being a lot more dangerous and a lot more intense of a scene than any of us knew what we were going into. And so, in the moment, we had a choice partway through the scene where we could turn tail and flee, or if we stayed, we would die. And so, my character, I knew out of me as a person, I didn't want to lose my character. That was not something that I was expecting going into this. It was not a scene that I was expecting at all, like, from a player standpoint, from a player standpoint.
You thought it was going to be like a quick snatch and grab kind of cakewalk.
And so, but I had to make the decision in the moment to knowing, I knew out of character that if we all turned them left, the storytellers would let us leave. But I had to separate my out of character knowledge from my in character knowledge. And so I made the in character decision to order my pack to leave. And I stood my ground. And I was the only one that died in that scene. Whoa. And I let them go. And that was a really intense, and I had a lot of bleed in that scene afterwards too, because it wasn't something that I expected going in, because there wasn't a level of communication of this was that potential, that dangerous, but it was also a turning point. It was something I knew that I had to do as a character. It is an embodiment of him and his personality and his driving goals and his duty. But it was also this incredibly like emotional scene for him of like facing off against these black spar dancers and ultimately just having his head chopped off.
One of the really strange things, I guess, in what you said, that seems to be a common theme, is charismatic characters tend to follow through. You know they will absolutely follow through, even if it's at harm or even if it brings about an end, because charismatic characters are the ones that you will ultimately believe in, even when things are not going to be clean or nice.
When you know the risk is there and you know that it could very well be an end, you will follow them. But speaking of ends, I believe
it's time.
Yeah, it is about time.
Yeah, thank you. So everyone, thank you for tuning in to this podcast. If you want to learn more or be involved with more, there is our Facebook group, Life Action Roleplay Hype, which is a more interactive version of our, discussions. We are also on iTunes and on Podbean, so if you can subscribe to that, that would be most helpful. We also just passed 1,000 downloads.
Woo.
So that's wonderful. So thank you so much. We could not have done this without you. So let's go around and do our social medias. So if you want to reach any of our people, how can they reach you? Let's start off with Paul.
So I'll just be easy. Go to one place, cwfox.com. Everything's there.
If you're interested in the vampire game, we are on Facebook at La Sangre de Los Angeles. I think you also find us on the One World by Night website, OWBN.net. For me, you can find me on Instagram at Smart Pencil Designs, all one word, Smart Pencil Designs, or just by my last name, which is Poisal, Poisal.
Cool. So this is Kai speaking, obviously. The horrible accent is the giveaway there. So I've got my props page on Instagram, which is KOMMISSARPROPS, Commissar Props. And you can also check out Cynthia's Instagram as Cynthia__Marie.
Mm-hmm.
Will, how about you?
I have a Facebook. That's really about it. It's actually my personal Facebook.
So if you want to come experience Will and all his character glory, come to Twin Mask.
Yes.
Then you can find out.
I will definitely be coming to next game
You better,
because
right.
I'm promising
Yeah.
actually.
So if you want to play with Will, twinmask.com. You'll be there next game. I expect to see you all there.
Yep.
I'm gonna
yeah,
Every
that or
single
I've never
VR.
met,
you.
so I'm gonna try to check it out.
Yeah.
You guys will meet the other Wesley.
You might get to meet John, who is actually responsible for the head exploding. It's the John or Angela's their combined idea.
Oh, it's their idea for
exploding heads.
the head pops. Oof. It's
And
evil.
this is Ryan Omega. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram under Ryan Omega, except for Twitter, which is Ryan OMGA. And you can also catch me on the Dungeons and Dragons Twitch channel on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. on the show Furious Fate, where I roleplay with such luminaries as Kyle Vaught, Dodger, Sig Neutron, Kim Horcher,
It's a pretty cool show.
Octopimp, and there's me. I don't know why I'm there, but I'm
Because you're
determined
awesome.
to be
Because you're a
there.
good role player.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh,
it's
you have more
charisma than
you're
let on.
I always forget about the Twitters. I'm the A Poisel.
A Poisel.
A Poisel.
A space poisel
No,
or
just
a poisel?
A Poisel.
Oh.
So you are a Poisel.
A poisel on Twitter. Awesome.
All right. Thank you for tuning in. And on behalf of all of us, catch you later. Bye.
Take care, guys.
Bye.